What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to break down what happened during the FOMC meeting that was super significant for the markets, what Jerome Powell just announced that actually caused a lot of volatility and for the markets to get a bit of a rug pull, and also what's going on with NIO stock. So I'm going to break down some very important information about NIO, what the data is telling us, and where NIO is, and what my price prediction is going forward. Before I talk about anything involving NIO and Tesla and the SPY and the QQQ, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below. Deposit $100 into the account. You're guaranteed up to 5 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is, any could be a free NIO share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 9 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. NIO closed very low yesterday, dropping to about 7.4 dollars, and then we actually saw a tiny bounce today, pushing up and coming right back down, closing at 7.6. Overall, very slight green day, but the real question is, what is NIO going to do going forward? Well, what's interesting about NIO is when it drops to these crazy low levels, it has a tendency of becoming quite oversold, and it also likes to base around these levels. So now NIO is trying to base around here. It might not crash as hard unless we get a very bearish catalyst, and for now, it's trying to hold up. But the real question is, could it continue to hold up? Now, looking at SPY, here's the thing. You have to remember that on the 1 hour time frame, SPY had this very important looking wedge that developed basically. It looks like this. And then we basically broke below it, right? We got a clean break to the downside. We broke out, falling very hard. And we closed just at support at 408. So for tomorrow, I'm going to be looking for a small bounce off this level. And if it fails to get above 409 or even 410, if it fails to close above that or even hold it nicely, it could get a big rejection and continue to drop. And it looks to me like that is very likely to happen, as we do have this gap down here. And once again, there could be more selling after the things that Jerome Powell just said, which I will talk about in a couple of minutes. However, I want to remind everyone that for Friday and beyond, we have another big catalyst, and that's going to be earnings coming out. That will also affect what happens with the market and also for NIO and many of these stocks. For tomorrow, now that the FOMC meeting just passed, we have some very important initial jobless claims data, some cars numbers that are going to be coming out for Friday. And then we also have non-farm payrolls. So nothing too huge except for initial jobless claims on Thursday. And then for tomorrow, we have Apple earnings, Shopify earnings, Coinbase, Peloton, Lyft, and many others. Make sure you watch these carefully. Apple is going to affect the market big time. But now let's talk about the FOMC meeting just briefly. What did Jerome Powell do? The Fed gave us, excuse me, sorry guys, another 25 basis point rate hike. They actually did not confirm a pause, unfortunately, for the bulls. And they told us that the Fed is likely going to be open to more rate hikes or maybe even pausing. They're still open to anything, and they're going to react to the data. Now, many people like Elon Musk have criticized that strategy because of the fact that the Fed's data is very delayed. And he did mention that the Fed needs to actually pause very soon, or else things could get worse for the economy. Jerome Powell did mention that a severe recession is unlikely in his opinion, and we're most likely going to get either a mild recession or a very soft landing, because he did mention that contrary to popular belief, unemployment may not have to go as high as some people are projecting to bring inflation down. The problem and the reason why the Fed cannot pause just yet is because of what the data is suggesting. Looking at the manufacturing data that came out a couple of days ago, it's clear that we could get another spike in inflation. And if that happens, that's going to be very bearish for the markets. That's why we have to be super careful. We have to be very wary of what on earth the Fed could continue to do. Because when you look at the banks, many of them are continuing to struggle, and we're likely going to see many of them, uh, excuse me, sorry guys, we're going to see a lot of them basically sold at discounts, as the FDIC acquires them, and then they're going to be sold to like JP Morgan and other massive banks to help make profits off of them in the future. But once again, the banking crisis is not over. There's still a lot of banks at risk as the Fed has raised rates even more. So now the real question is, what does this mean for the economy? Well, Elon Musk is saying this could cause, or it will cause, a severe recession, his opinion. He said to mark his words. And he also, once again, does not agree with the Fed's practices. Now, when it comes to NIO did mention that it's not afraid of Tesla and will challenge VW with affordable EVs in Europe. NIO is working very hard on this, but we're still waiting for a really bullish piece of news, some kind of announcement about this. Until then, I mean, the share price is relatively low, and I see it as a very good buying opportunity, and I do believe we'll have more opportunities to come. NIO right now is setting to launch two new brands. One of them is going to be aimed at VW in Europe, and the starting price may be below 30,000 euros or about $33 USD. That's still a pretty good estimate. And I want to see when this actually comes out. So we're still waiting for it. Additionally, NIO is working to target different European countries with mass markets, such as France, Italy, Spain, and others. They're not afraid of losing market share to Tesla, but what is questionable about NIO is whether or not they're going to be cutting prices, because they want to work on a cheaper EV, of course, but shouldn't they try to cut prices too, is my question, at least to some degree, given the fact that their sales are starting to drop even more. I know they don't want to sink into their margins or make them worse, but it is affecting their deliveries on a month-to-month basis. So I want to see some improvement for the company, and we will see how this comes out during earnings. Now, NIO has a very low price pairs ratio. It's going to bounce a little bit as it's very low. It tends to be green about 51% of the time on Thursdays, and the short volume did go up a little bit to about 5.5 million shares. I saw about 39 million in volume, so pretty average volume. But the question is, could NIO try to bounce? Well, I'm basically seeing it being unlikely in the very short term to get a nice balance. We could get a small one every now and then, but that's also going to be dependent on Apple's earnings and other factors. Apple's going to be the big earnings coming out for tomorrow after the market closes. I'm thinking SPY is going to try to bounce and make its way back up to this like 409 to 410 area, but it's likely going to see weakness and fail and then continue to downtrend. We're going to come back to about 408. If this fails, it's going to come tanking to about 404 if 408 fails. And I think the odds favor that because we have this gap down here. We have a bearish structure that has developed. And once again, on the 1 hour time frame, we had this wedge which SPY developed, and we broke out of it to the downside. And the Fed truly did not give us any bullish news. The Fed was just uncertain. The Fed said they're open to another rate hike, which will hurt lots of smaller banks. Not the best of things. We could see a credit crunch and more tightening of credit conditions. For Tesla, we're on the verge of getting a crossover on the PPO, nothing too extreme. It looks to me like Tesla's just chopping back and forth and back and forth. Whoops, sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that. Back and forth and back and forth is likely going to continue this way, stuck in this little channel. And what I'm seeing for Tesla is a bounce in the morning. I think it's going to try to bounce just a little bit, then slow down as the day goes on, sell off, and maybe get back to where it is right now. And if it fails below 160, we could see 158 tomorrow. But I do see it closing very flat, if not a little bit in the red after what just came out from the Fed. I think the market's becoming less strong, and it could even get worse if it fails to hold 158, but that's what I'm seeing for now. Finally, for the QQQ, it has a gap on the daily chart. The daily chart looks more bearish than bullish, but once again, this will depend on Apple's earnings tomorrow. If Apple's reporting after the market closes, by the way, but it looks very distributive now, and it looks to me like the QQQ is going to come down to fill this gap. 313 is likely going to come. Might try to bounce off 317 first, retest like 319 almost, and then come down. That's very likely, and we'll see how Apple's earnings goes. If Apple does not do too well, if Apple gets rug pulled, we're going to see the market get a big rug pull too. All right, so be open-minded and be ready for this. I think the odds favor the QQQ eventually coming down to fill this gap by Friday, if not early next week. And if that's the case, it's going to negatively affect NIO. NIO might actually see very choppy price action, and it could actually come down to retest 7.33. If that fails, it could get closer to 7 flat. What do I predict for tomorrow? I'm seeing just very boring sideways price action. I'm not really seeing any divergences, but we are slowing down in terms of the selling pressure. NIO is trying to base around here, around 7 to 7.33. So for tomorrow, I'm seeing NIO trying to pop in the morning, make its way back up to about 7.8. Then it's likely going to make an attempt to get to almost 7.9 to about $8. It's going to try to get close to it. It's likely going to fail. And then it's going to reject and close very flat in a very boring way because it has been pretty flat recently. Now, there's a possible inverse head and shoulders forming right here. It's just a possibility. In order for this to form, NIO might pop up to about 7.9-ish, reject, come back down to like 7.5, and then get the push up. I mean, that's just one case, but so far, Apple, the QQQ Inspire are not supporting this. NIO needs a catalyst to cause that to happen. But for now, I am seeing an attempt to go back up to like 8 and then come back down. I think it's still very possible to do that at the very least. I just don't know about the breakout that could come later on if that's going to be confirmed. So for tomorrow, I'm seeing a nice push up in the morning, a bit of a sell off as the day goes on to about 7.5 or so, a bounce, and a close very flat where we are right now. Very, very flat. It could be a little red even. That would be completely fine. We'll see what happens during Apple's earnings. That's going to determine how the market moves as well. So don't forget, right here, Apple has earnings for Thursday. Very, very important stuff. Lastly, I have some merch for you guys if you're interested in buying anything, a hoodie, a tank top, a t-shirt, or whatever you want, especially one that says "to the moon" or something very nice like that. It's really your choice. I would really appreciate it if you tried to buy something. If not, also fine with me. Thank you all for listening. Have a great day. NIO to the moon alongside the rest of the market as the long term is very bright. And peace out.